Hello, everybody. This is Coach Razo here. So, in this video, we're going to go ahead and cover is that how to go ahead and solve the midpoint and also the distance formula, and also solve slope of a line. My fault. So in this video, I'm going to go through several examples of how to go ahead and perform midpoint, distance, and slope. And so initially, what midpoint is that we're trying to go ahead and figure out the distance between well, where actually is like we have 2 points and they're on a coordinate plane, and we have to figure out where exactly is this point located, which is the biggest key. So if we have a line that happens to be plotted, the question will be where would be the midpoint of this line segment. So it's going to be kind of like the question that we have to go ahead and figure out. And it goes back to this formulas. So if you don't know your formula, then it's going to be an issue. Now distance, let's say we took that same segment and we were trying to figure out how long that segment is. So if I got like a little tape measure, so I got a little bit of tape, and I want to measure that, how far or what's the length of that? Length is also length, distance, how far it is. There are some of the ways to go ahead and try and characterize between these 2 points. So just try and keep it simple along the way. And just like I said, like we could be on this corner plane. We got to figure out how far from point A to point B it is. Okay. Now, the other one, slope of a line. So if you took algebra, that means you probably passed it and you're in geometry. Now, in terms of slope of a line, you have to be able to go ahead and know rise over run, and you have to understand what's the slope going to be like. Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? Is it zero? Is it undefined? Those are some of the things that you have to understand. So when it's a positive slope, it's going to be increasing. Okay. When it's a negative slope, that means it is decreasing. Okay. If it is zero, then obviously the slope is zero. Okay. Now, this being said, sometimes you'll get one where it's kind of funky and you have like a zero, like a 5 divided by 0, and that'll be considered undefined. Okay, and this will come into play a little bit later on. So make sure you go and understand what your formulas you have to work with, and especially the distance one, which has a lot of little parts to it. But the slope and the midpoint shouldn't be that bad. Okay, so now as we go through here, we have to go ahead and understand what you're asked to go and look for. So I'm going to get rid of this one. So find the slope, length, and midpoint of each segment. Now, as we're going with this, you want to go ahead and understand the biggest important part is that you want to label what you see here. So first point, second point, because I'm reading it down the line segment AB with point A. So that's my X, that's my Y. And point B, that's my X, and that's my Y. Now, some of you probably forgot that points go by X and Y. So that means that if this is my first point, it's X1, Y1. And that's my second point, which is X2 and Y2. So we're trying to make them a little bit different. So they're not necessarily like lined up the same way. So 1, 2, I want to go ahead and go into that one. So 1, 2. So over 1, up 2. 5 over 2, I mean over 5, up 10. So over 5, up 10, boom. So you want to go and connect those 2 points. Now, that being said, so this is the line segment that we're talking about. A little bit similar to one over here. Now, you want to go and use your formulas. So if we're trying to look for slope, it's rise over run. So it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then, so from here, you have y2, which is 10, minus 5. Wait, no, my fault. 10 minus 2. Okay, so I took these two. I took the 10, and I took this y, and I put them right here. Okay, and then I'm going to take 5 minus 1, because those are going to be the next ones I have. I have these right here. I have this 5, and I have that 1. So 5 and then 1. So notice the little minus signs did not change because these are actually part of this formula over here. So you have to be able to see these. These are going to be a little bit different, okay? Especially when you see negatives. Now, that being said, so y'all can see where I'm looking at. Let's solve it. So I have 8 over 4. 8 divided by 4, it gives you 2. So my slope is 2. Okay? So up 2 over 1 is what it's saying. Now my length is going to be a little bit different. Okay? So my length is going to be distance is equal to the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So gives you a little bit more of an idea of what you're working with. Okay, so make sure that you're working with them. Now, that being said, let's plug in what we know. Okay, so my x2s are the ones in green, so I'm gonna use that. So x2 is 5 minus 1 squared. So what I usually like doing is I like knocking out one part and then I will knock out the next part. So I'll show you right now then. So 5 minus 1 gives you 4. What's 4 squared? 16. Okay, put your plus. And now the right side is going to be the, so these are my greens. Now the right side is going to go ahead and be the yellows now. Okay, so whatever I have for the yellows is going to be in there. So it's going to go ahead and be 10 minus 2 squared. 10 minus 2 gives you 8 squared. 8 squared gives you 64. And then you can add them up, and what do you get? You should go ahead and get 80. Now, I do these just to separate everything. So just don't forget about your square roots that are at the very top. So square root it. And so d is equal to square root of 80. Okay, so here it's saying round to the nearest hundredth if necessary. So here my answer is the square root of 80. So if I go ahead and take the square root of 80, square root, I'll get 8.94. Okay, that's round to the nearest hundredth. Now, other part is that, so that's I got my length, I got my slope, midpoint. So midpoint, you can use, let's see, that'll be the top one right here. It'll be this one right here. Now, some students get confused where it kind of looks like the slope one. So just be aware of what you're looking at. Always know what you're trying to find. So I'll highlight these just to make it a little bit easier to see. So I'm trying to highlight these. So if you notice, it looks like a point. So we want to go ahead and find a point that's inside here. That's created by the formula. So use blue. So first point, x1 plus x2. So that means I'm going to add my my x values. So I have 1 plus 5. So anything that's in green just pretty much stays together. And then divided by 2. And then that'll be, gives you 6 divided by 2, which is going to give you 3. Now, the other part of it is that you're going to go ahead and take your 10. Now, y1 plus y2, so it'll be 10 plus 2 divided by 2. So 10 plus 2 gives you 12. Divided by 2 gives you 6. So 3 and 6. 3 comma 6. Okay? So that's some ways to do it. Okay? That's one way of doing it. Now, I'm going to show you another way. Because I know something everybody's a little bit different. I get it. It's like I stack them, add them, divide. So you can go ahead and stack them. 1 comma 2 plus 5 comma 10. Stack them. And then you get 6 over 12. Stack them, add them. And then you can go ahead and divide. And you're just going to divide by 2. And then now you have 3 comma 6. Okay? So 3 comma 6. So it's different ways of going about it. I just like saying the phrase because maybe it might stick in your head, like stack them, add them, divide for midpoint. So you kind of have like an idea of how to go and solve these, okay? To give you a little bit more of a jump start. Now, I would say down here, be careful. Be very, very careful with these negatives. because these negatives can throw you off. So if we're trying to solve this one, I have that one, I have that one. So let's say I'm trying to find a slope. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and know what I'm looking at in the very beginning. So I got x1, y1, x2, y2. So it'll be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that's my slope. So it'll be -7 minus 2. And then it'll be 1 minus a -2. So like right here is a really good case. So if you notice here is that -7 minus 2 is going to be either, some of you will probably say 5, some students will go ahead and say 9, whatever case it is. The way I see it is that let's say you owe me money. Okay, so if you owe me money, you owe me, $7. And if you owe me another $2, how much money do you owe me? You owe me 9. Okay, so it's just basic math. Now, over here, we got 1 minus a -2. Now, if you remember back in algebra, you kind of like when you minus a negative turns to a, so it's kind of more of that phrasing. So when you minus a negative turns to a positive. So make sure you go ahead and remember that these two turn positive. Okay, 1 plus 2 gives you 3. So it gives you a heads up on what you go ahead and see. Okay, I'm not going to solve the slope one. I'll let you go and figure that one out. Now the next part over is that let's say we're trying to do distance formula. Okay, so yeah, distance formula. Okay, so we knocked that one out. Distance formula. So it could be length. Okay, so distance is length. Now we have d is equal to the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So let's say we plug them in. So if I plug it in, my x2 is going to be 1 minus a -2 squared. And now here's the issue, because now you have to think about what we're here. So when you minus a negative, it turns to what? When you minus a negative, it turns to a positive. So that's one thing that you have to work at. So 1 plus 2 gives you 3 squared. Okay, it's a integers situation. So you have to practice your integers throughout this. Now, as for the other side, let's say we have y2. So -7 minus a -2. And we're squaring it. Okay. Now, from here, what's going on is that you have to be able to identify when you minus a negative. Actually, my fault, guys. It should be a +2 right here. So -2. So when you -7 minus 2 gives you a -9. And so this happens to be squared, but you have to remember it has a parentheses. So as the parentheses get locked inside, that means the negative goes inside. So when you type it on your calculator, this part has to be typed exactly how I see. So if you're on your calculator, it should be parentheses, -9, and then squared. If you do this, on the calculator, it's going to read it differently. So you want to go and fix that. So some of you may have had this issue. The parentheses is going to fix everything for you. So -9 squared is going to go ahead and become the 81. But you have to use the parentheses in your calculator. And then you can go ahead and solve this one on your own, whichever case it may be, okay? So just giving you a few heads up, a few pointers here and there. Make sure you're listening. Make sure you go ahead and hit subscribe along the way. So whatever helps you out, guys, okay? Here for you.